he almost burned the house down, as I'm sure you remember.
I remember that. Yeah.
And I reached out to Anne and I just said, I can't do this anymore. I'm losing my mind. And it turns out that it wasn't worth living in the ghetto with a horrible roommate who was having orgies in the room next to me and having people break into the house and almost burning down the house. And you just said, all right, bring your dogs. We're going to the ranch. The story of us linking up and becoming friends is a good story. Why don't you? You're far more gifted at storytelling than I. So why don't you tell people what you remember?
Well, I was a friend and worked with uh, your aunt, and your aunt said to me one day, I don't know what to do with this kid. She's nuts. She's off the rails. Could you please take her off my hands? And I did. You and I became friends.
That's true. You did. I mean, I had just well, she was kind of fed up because I reached out to her and I told her, I was living with the gay kid. We use the F word, but in your presence I won't.
All right.
um, but he almost burned the house down, as I'm sure you remember.
I remember that. Yeah.
Yep, and I reached out to Anne and I just said, I can't do this anymore. I'm losing my mind. And, it turns out that despite only paying $400 for my room, it wasn't worth living in the ghetto with a horrible roommate who was having orgies in the room next to me and having people break into the house and almost burning down the house. And you just said, all right, bring your dogs. We're going to the ranch. Like, get out of here.
And then you got to the ranch, and it was the exact same thing you just described, except you didn't pay rent. So
That's true. I didn't. You were, well,
there was orgies and fires and everything else, but no rent money.
no, and you just had to sit around, like, oh, great, she's using my place.
Yeah.
No, but in all seriousness, that's when, like, you helped me get my life together, and that's when I, we would watch Tucker Carlson together,
That's
and
right.
you would tell me about how much of a dumbass I was, and I finally started to listen, and look at where we are today. I'd say maybe even as or more right wing than you.
And you're more famous than me. This is bullshit.
I'm definitely not more famous than you.
Well,
I'm like, if I'm
everybody
famous
is.
at all, if I concede to the famous label at all, I'm like, what if there's a level below D list? I'm in that.
Your
I
E
like.
list?
I
I've
am the
never
E
heard of
list.
the E list.
I've never heard well, you know what? They made the E list for me because everybody else knows who I like. All the people in the upper echelons of this know who I am. Like I can name drop all the people, but they know who I am. So if they see me, they see it, they'll share it or whatever. But I am like the least. And actually, this is a really funny story. So Raheem, this is another guy who's like in these spheres, like a Milo type or whatever. He opened a new restaurant for conservatives in DC called Butterworths, and
Ooh.
it's delightful. I will say the food is wonderful, the atmosphere is great, and you're not going to get rejected there for being a conservative. But I will say, I I was. I was there for during the parade, but I was there for Warp Tour instead of the parade. So I wasn't. So I was, talking to a couple of people, and I hit up my good friend Jack Posobiec, and I said, "Hey Jack, what's going on? I want to meet up with people, but I'm going to be at Warp Tour during the day." And he goes, "Oh, we're getting together at Butterworths." I have no idea what this place is. I have no idea who owns this place. I just figured this was like a group of us, buddies getting together at a bar. So I just like I roll up in a t-shirt. I'm like fresh off Warp Tour. I had literally just showered and put on some makeup and threw on like a casual outfit. I walk up and it's this fancy restaurant, this like really sophisticated place, and I'm embarrassed as hell. And Charles was with me. We were both kind of, we felt like, sore thumbs sticking out. And
Definitely.
this guy, it was really awkward. I didn't, and I kind of I see that they're taking names, and I thought, oh, okay, well maybe Jack told them I was coming, right? So I go up to the lady and I say, how, and she goes, oh, your name? I go, oh, it's Kim Coulter, thinking like, let's see how much weight my name still carries. And it didn't carry any weight at
Like
all,
who?
Rodney, none whatsoever. And then who? And I just not in a mean way. I was like, listen, I didn't know this was an RFGP thing. Jack Potobic told me to come and like I could see the guy who owned it, Raheem, he was out by us at this time, and I could see him like roll his eyes because it seemed like I was just trying to name drop to get into the thing, and it was just like, no, I really thought that this was just a bar meetup, whatever. And so he goes, oh, well, we have to let the VIPs in first. And I don't mean that to be mocking, but you can't fake a British accent without it sounding like you're mocking them. So I hit up Jack and I'm just like, hey man, this is a formal thing and I'm not dressed for it, and I'll see you later, man. And he goes, no, I'll be right there. And he pulls up. When he finally arrives, he walks over to the guy who owns the thing, and long walk for a short drink of water, but he kind of looks over at me and my friend. He looks at Jack and he goes, what are you doing inviting these nobodies to my bar? And it was just like, hey, I'm at least somewhat of a somebody. I'm not entirely a nobody, mister. But ultimately he did let us in, and I do think he meant it mostly in jest.
See, I don't get invited to this stuff. I don't
get invited either.
Yes,
apparently.
You do. You just told an incredibly long story about getting invited to one of these things.
Well, I wasn't
that,
really.
That story was longer than your opening. May I say that?
Probably was. Well, I tell that long story to say I am nobody in this circle.
Ladies and gentlemen, let's get ready to